So you say, okay, now we're in an off year. It's the year after a presidential race. Why bother? Let's hold on at least until 2010 when there's some congressional races. Pat Toomey is running for the Senate, and Charlie Dent is running for Congress in this area, so maybe you want to get involved there. I want to make the case that I think you should get involved this year and now, whether that's with my campaign or with somebody that you care about locally or in your, wherever you come from. If you can, now that we have cell phones and free weekends and evening minutes, you can actually get involved in helping people to call voters and stuff like that, even if you're far away from where you live. Obviously, I'd be glad if you got involved with my campaign. But here's why. There's this phenomenon that's going on in government that we don't think about too much because we watch TV. So if you're watching Fox News or CNN or MSNBC or any of the major networks or whoever's covering national politics, or The Daily Show, of course, the most important news network, if you're watching that, they cover the national races. They cover the big news. And so we really don't know very much about even what's going on in the state of Pennsylvania, let alone in our local communities. As a result, because we are kind of a nation that's addicted to celebrity, we begin to believe that that's the important stuff. The people who are on TV, those are the important races. And frankly, I've become convinced that that's exactly the way the people in Washington, D.C. want it. Because they want you to keep your eyes on Washington, D.C. They want you to be angry about what's going on in Washington, D.C. because they know there's very little you can do about that. The federal deficit, who knows what the federal deficit is these days? Yeah, so the highest guess I heard was 10 trillion. The last I heard, it's probably in the neighborhood of 13 trillion. $13 trillion, give or take a trillion or six. The state of Pennsylvania, who knows how big the deficit is in the state of Pennsylvania this year? 100 million?
Under a billion.
Under a billion. It is under a billion. No, it's not under a billion. I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It's actually $3.5 billion in Pennsylvania this year. What can we do about a $13 trillion deficit? I mean, it just seems hopeless. And in order to do something about it, you have to somehow persuade 535 senators and congressmen, and then the whole Obama administration, which I think is another 500,000 employees there, that you have to convince in order to be able to do something about that. You have to somehow in Pennsylvania get to Ed Rendell and 50 state senators, I don't even know how many state representatives are, to do something about that. Well, in Lehigh County, there's also a budget deficit this year. The guy who's the Lehigh County executive won't call it a deficit because he's dipping money out of the savings account for the county to make the budget look like it's balanced. So he says, well, that's not really a deficit. We still have money, you know. So that amount this year is $12.5 million. Next year, it'll be $20 million. Every year during this, the administration of my opponent, that number has grown for 6 million, then 8 million, then 12.5 million, then 20 million. It's a pattern that's very much like what's going on in the state of Pennsylvania, very much like what's going on in Washington, D.C.